Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. If you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Sharifa. My poetry name is New Lily. If you're new to the channel, please check out the links located in the description box and comment section. And in both locations, you'll find an identical set of links that lead to videos that talk about what started my targeting in 2020, as well as links that lead to videos that share information about the targeted individual program. Y'all, this is just an update, but also like low-key, I'm trying not to make it a vent because I don't want to create problems for myself, but it's just the noise campaigns. It's not necessarily what I felt was unfair about what happened this morning. It's more so the noise campaigns and the hopping on top of me because of what I think was already expected, right? So I had an interview this morning. I told you guys about this in my prior video, the last video, I think, or the video before that. I told you I have an interview with the Department of Education. And I told you the particulars about what was going on with that and the job that I'm currently working at. So anyways, y'all, this morning came, I worked the night shift. Y'all know I work every night except Saturday night. So I was exhausted. And typically with these type of interviews, I don't prepare ahead of time. This time I felt like I had to be prepared and like I had to have my I's dotted and my T's crossed. So I even put together like this little outline for myself of important things to talk about with the interview, right? Or questions that might arise. I don't typically do that. I usually just wing it. I had an interview with MacArthur High School in Hollywood, Florida, right when I graduated from college in 2020. I was in the vehicle with my mom when the interview happened, and it was an over-the-phone interview, and I aced the interview. I didn't even have notes prepared, y'all. This time I had notes prepared because I know what's been going on island. I know I'm targeted. I know the whole island's watching me. I had notes prepared, y'all, and it still didn't help with the interview. It helped a little bit, but it just, I want you to understand the particulars, right? So I worked last night, an 8-hour shift. I worked from 12 a.m. to 8 a.m. this morning. The interview was at 9 a.m. I was up bright and early. Well, obviously I was up. I just had gotten off work, y'all, but I was on there bright and early. I even texted my supervisor, trying to prep ahead of time to let the guard that relieves me from the night shift know that she needs to be on time this morning, and if possible, can she come a few minutes early? And she really did. She came a couple minutes early, so I appreciate that. So anyway, I come home, I hop in the shower, get dressed. I'm trying to use the link. The link isn't working. We did this interview via Teams, right? The link isn't working. I'm trying to get on. It's not working. So I'm communicating via text message and phone call with the coordinator of the interview. So finally, the interview, finally the link seems to start working. After about 30 minutes of this back and forth and trying to figure out why the link isn't working, we finally got the link working and she was able to see me in the lobby. This took about 30 to 45 minutes. She then tells me, do you think we can push back the interview to 11 a.m.? I said, if possible, can I do the interview now? I just worked the night shift. It's 9:30 right now. And I haven't rested. So I know I'm not going to be able to rest from 9:30 to 11. So I'm going to have to sit up until 11 a.m. to do this interview. She started explaining to me, well, there was somebody for the 9:30 slot. So, okay, let me put you in the lobby and whatever. So she put me in the lobby. I noticed I seen 10 o'clock come. I saw 10:30 come. I realized I was really just waiting until 11 o'clock. So while I'm waiting, y'all, I'm targeted, right? The whole island's watching. This is what I told you all I was anxious about to begin with, was the fact that this interview is being conducted while the whole island watches, right? But anyway, so they're doing noise campaigns in the background. It's not to say they're just quietly watching. They're purposely doing antagonizing, gang stalking things. There was even this thing where I was going through some of the reading material I like to share with my students whenever I am teaching, because I taught for 2 years down here on island. And so I was going over the reading material for one of the classes that I had, one of the 10th grade honor classes I had. And so while I'm going over the reading material, I was just trying to see, I know the book well, y'all, and I know the summary of the story, and I know why I wanted to share that particular story, but I wanted to see the time period. I couldn't remember the time period. I couldn't remember if it happened in the 1800s or the 1900s. So while I'm reading it, I read the part about the dictator, right, in the story, and when he got assassinated. So I read that he got assassinated in 1930. Do you know, as soon as I read that, I got a call from the supervisor. Now, remember, I'm being watched on camera. I got a call from the supervisor for my job, my current job, my security job. And she's telling me, I know she knows I have an interview. They all see me on camera. So this was like an antagonizing tactic. She said she's in desperate need of somebody to cover a shift and whatever she was saying, right? And they're doing noise campaign in the background and doing all the activity that they usually do, big show for the island or whatever. So I explained to her I'm in an interview. She said, okay, no problem, whatever, we got off the phone. But that in and of itself felt like a tactic because that's been used on me throughout the last 4 years of the targeting, y'all. Specifically I've been a target for 6 years, but specifically the last 4 years, where they're watching you on camera and then a text will come through, a call will come through when you read something horrible. So I'm already nervous. I'm already aware of the fact that the whole island is watching me. It's to the point where I put notes together, y'all, for this interview, and I don't typically do that. And then now this antagonizing phone call comes through, and then they're doing noise campaigns in the background while it's happening. So I'm like, oh boy, I start getting discouraged, right? But I'm still like sitting up and trying to keep myself aware and alert, as exhausted as I was, and just repeating this mantra of what I felt was important facts. So the curriculum for English students, right? For high school English students, I know that there were 3 main skill sets that you need to focus on when you're creating your lesson plans: analytical writing, critical thinking, and world literature. So I went through those 3 main skill sets, and I thought about the lesson plans that I actually do incorporate into my teaching. And so I put those 3 lessons, just one example of those 3 different skill sets, a science-based lesson plan that I have for that skill set. I was prepared. I even had a mission statement prepared and everything. I'm sitting there, I'm waiting. I'm getting like tired. I'm really getting tired. I texted her several times. She said, oh, one more person before you. I said, okay, no problem. They're doing noise campaigns in the background. I'm getting dragged down. I'm sitting here on the bed, falling asleep on myself, right? So eventually now I see it's about to be 11. I texted her again. I said, hey, are you still going to conduct the interview or whatever? I texted her, something along those lines. She didn't answer me. So I'm scrolling through Facebook, and then I get to this post where a gunshot, the girl is shooting the gun and the gun jacks back and hits her in the face. And then the girl answers me. So I remember at that point getting really discouraged, and I had been sitting there for 2 hours. I just worked the night shift. I'm exhausted, right? So when I see that now, I didn't even answer her. I've been corresponding with her the whole morning trying to get into this interview. I've never sat for 2 hours straight for waiting for an interview. And then on top of things, again, recall that I'm being watched on camera and antagonized. So anyway, so I remember just really getting discouraged and not even answering her text at that point. And I just like started scrolling through stuff. I got Basity. I went through this story that I put up on Facebook recently. I started looking at that, and then my mother called me over to the room to discuss some personal matters, something that's going on with a family member of ours. And then she asked me, how did the interview go? I said, it hasn't happened yet. I'm still waiting. She said, what? You've been waiting for that long? As soon as she did that, I heard the call connect. The call connected on my end. Remember, I told you this was via Teams, right? So this was a virtual interview, and I had my room door open and my computer, set up on my bed. So I hop into the room now. I left my mom. I sit down. I'm exhausted. They had a whole panel, which is typical. That does happen with these interviews. But they had a whole panel of judges, and then there's sensitization within the panel. One of the people on the panel had blonde hair. And then one of the other people on the panel had the last name of the correction officer that I had the weird dream about, right? If you've been keeping up with my story, y'all, you know what I'm talking about and who I'm talking about. I never used her name, but I told you about the scenario with this corrections officer and what I thought was neuromonitoring with this dream. And I explained why whatever happened with her anyways happened. But that's something they antagonized me about, right? So that now threw me off even more. I'm already exhausted. I know everybody's staring at me. I've been sitting for 2 hours waiting after I just worked an 8-hour night shift. They're doing antagonizing things in the background and the slight gang stalking things activity occurring before the interview. I'm aware that the whole island is watching. I'm an introverted, shy person. I haven't taught in 4 years. And now the interview's starting and I'm seeing this activity, right? But they were very nice to me. It's not like they were being disrespectful. They weren't acting curt or rude. They were very open, welcoming, and they were kind to me. And they asked what I felt were appropriate interview questions. So that's not my complaint. It's really just the things that occurred right before the interview. And then you're acting, now that they're doing the noise campaign, when I actually did have the interview, there were questions I was asked that I did really well on. And then there were questions I was stammering, like I could not formulate an answer. Questions I know the answer to. Like, how do you utilize technology to teach your students? Or how do you incorporate technology in your teaching? I could not formulate an answer. I said, I create files for the students. And like some stupid answer. I couldn't even think of the same thing I was afraid was going to happen. I said, man, the longer I sit here, they heard me saying this. The more I feel like when the interview starts, I'm going to be stammering all over my words. I'm tired. And they're doing all this stuff in the background. I could have easily said that I used Microsoft Teams when I taught virtually during COVID, and I used to create interactive lesson plans. I would share my screen and the students would be able to interact with each other and me as the teacher while I'm teaching them via Teams. It's an interactive platform. If you learn how to utilize it, you can share the screen with your students and share your lesson plan with your students. You can even open folders where the students can go in and view different documents that you want them to view. This is stuff I know the answer to. I couldn't even tell them, the file, stupid. I'm so upset. So there was stuff that I was able to answer because I was practicing over and over again despite the exhaustion. And there were questions I just simply was not prepared for. And even though I could have thought of a smart answer, had I been rested and I'm not being antagonized and stared at, I couldn't even formulate an answer. There were like at least 3 to 4 questions like that, y'all. And then I bounced back with 2 of them. I would say like 2 of them I was able to bounce back and get something out. And then there were other ones I was able to answer. Look here, the noise campaign plane, y'all, flying by. And then there were other ones I was able to answer in a satisfactory way. But like there was like ones that, like what I just told you, where I could have answered that with my eyes closed. And I'm stammering over my words. Y'all, I was just so upset. Even when they asked me this question about smarter balance, I know that that's something that the students utilize. It wasn't anything that I ever had to facilitate personally in my class. That's a separate thing. And you have your avid teacher that uses the smarter balance. And that's really a way to just assess where the students are. I couldn't even think of an answer for that. I said, I taught 4 years ago. It's been years since I taught. I'm aware of the fact, though, that some of the students had low smarter balance scores for English. And so what I'll do, the answer was okay. The answer wasn't terrible, but I could have answered better. I was like, I would create lesson plans to cater to that need wherever they're struggling. Like, that wasn't too bad, but it was just sounding like plumb confused about smarter balance. When I'm familiar with smarter balance, it's been 4 years, but I'm familiar with it, with the platform. Like, it's just frustrating, man. It's like all these tactics were happening before the interview. I'm sitting there for 2 hours waiting for the interview. The whole island staring, which is what I was anxious about to begin with. Then I get in the interview, I see the sensitization, and they're doing stuff in the background. I could not, for at least a good 3 to 4 questions, I could not formulate an answer in a satisfactory way, the way that I would have liked to answer. And I thought back to some of these questions. I'm like, how do you utilize technology while you're teaching? Hello, I taught virtually for a year and a half. I'm thinking about the files and whatever stupid crap I was saying. I'm like, Sharifa, you know that you use Teams in an interactive way and the students are able to view the screen because you share it with them and they're able to interact with you and the students and their peers. There were files. I had so many files. Right now, if I could access my Department of Education email and get into my old Teams account, I had files. I'm very organized and anal. I had so many files for all my different classes with different lesson plans and different documents the students could access at all times. For instance, an outline. I taught them how to write an outline for MLA formatted papers, and then I gave them access to an outline with examples on Microsoft Teams. It's like I was so frustrated. It's like, okay, well, I answered some good and then some I answered horribly. So I would give myself like a 70%, but I could have done better, man. And then I'm hearing noise in the background. It just upset me so bad. And I was so tired till I really just knocked out. I just woke up, y'all. It was a mix of just not anger, but like frustration and exhaustion. I knocked out. Soon as I opened my eyes, they're doing a bunch of noise campaigns in the background like it's some sort of victory. That I had a blunder on a few questions while you're staring at me. And you know I just worked a night shift and I sat there for 2 hours dealing with gang stalking activity. Like, these are the tactics I talk about that targets deal with. No one else has to deal with this. And you know full well why my performance suffered and you're still going to antagonize me about it? Really? By the way, after the interview, too, then I got an Amber Alert to my phone about a 13-year-old. They've sensitized me to the number 13, y'all. About a 13-year-old that's missing on island. I just had to vent, y'all. So this is an update on how the interview went. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what the result of the interview will be. I didn't do terrible, but I could have done a lot better. And I just feel like the circumstances were not fair, especially when I was ready and primed and ready to go and I tried my best. Anyways, y'all, so that's an update and a little bit of a rant, kind of, like, it's mainly the noise campaigns. I was already, like, feeling, like, right before I fell asleep, I said, that wasn't fair. I actually thought that in my head before I fell asleep. And then I knocked out. And I wake up and they're doing a bunch of noise campaigns on me like it's some sort of victory, that there were a few questions I had a blunder with. When you literally sat there and saw what happened. Anyways, y'all, so that's what's going on, man. I'm not able. I can even read you my outline, y'all. I think what I put together was decent and appropriate for an interview. I've had many of these interviews, y'all. I've taught for the last 10 years. For a large portion, I dealt with the substitute department, and then I taught as an actual English teacher, an actual secondary English teacher for 2 years. This was 4 years ago. I've had many interviews. I know how to handle an interview. I don't even typically write notes, y'all. So I just put together the high school English curriculum because I know there are 3 main skill sets when it comes to high school English, and you need to have standard-based lesson plans for those 3 different skill sets. I have a bunch of lesson plans, y'all. I just picked the 3 best ones. So I had put this together, y'all. I didn't even need to do this because typically this info is just in my mental Rolodex. I don't have to dig through and write down notes and stuff, but I was so nervous about forgetting what I wanted to say or stammering because of the high intensity of my specific situation. I wrote notes. That still didn't help. It helped a little bit, but no. With everything that happened this morning and stuff. Of course, they asked some scenario type questions. Things that I would have typically been able to answer, like that technology one. I'm like, what the heck? I was telling her, I forgot what I was. I started stammering. The fouls and the fouls. What stupid crap. I didn't remember what I was saying. After the interview, I was beating myself up. Look, y'all, so I put together just the 3 main skill sets that high school students, that's a part of the high school English curriculum. So it's analytical writing skills, complex critical thinking, and world literature. So I had a lesson plan that I have, actually, y'all, in my folder. If I can access my old Department of Education email, then I could access those files that I still have. Those files should still be there. So one of the lesson plans was teaching them an MLA formatted paper, y'all. And so I was just saying that I teach them for the analytical writing skills and MLA formatted paper. And I teach them the importance of a strong thesis. This was one of the questions they asked me that I got correct, though, where they were asking me, I don't remember the exact question, but I think they asked me, what do I learn about my students to help them with their writing or something like that. I can't remember the exact verbatim what was asked, y'all. But I incorporated this part here with that question. That worked out. There were questions that I was asked that I was prepared for. And there were questions that typically I could have winged it. And I just couldn't. My brain was blank. Mush. There was one question I asked. I even had to ask her, can you please repeat that? I'm sorry. I'm tired. I worked the night shift. I had to ask her to repeat the question. So anyway, I was saying I teach them how to create an outline to write the MLA formatted paper, and I teach them the importance of picking a topic they're passionate about. I could talk on and on and on for days about this because it's similar to writing poetry. Like, if you're not interested in the topic, then you'll have writer's block, and it'll feel like this arduous process trying to write the paper. Writing is not hard. If you write about stuff you're passionate about and you have a good concrete outline, it's not hard. I keep reiterating this, y'all. I'm not trying to do this. I'm just saying I just didn't like what happened this morning. The 11th grade honors English teacher told my mother, thank you. When I left, I tried to relocate off island because of the targeting. Tell your daughter thank you for teaching the students MLA format. They came up knowing how to write an MLA paper, and sometimes they come up not knowing how to do that. I'm sure she regrets saying it now. She's, white, and you know what's happened with my targeting and me sharing offensive content. But anyway, she told my mother to tell me thank you. I was teaching them how to write MLA formatted papers, and that was another way I was utilizing the technology because there were outlines available. So I showed them how to create their own outline, and then I had a template outline that I created with my own topic that I'm passionate about. Anyway, y'all, for complex critical thinking, I was telling them about the debate that I do with my students, where I'll give them like a pool of controversial topics to pick from, break them into groups, and then I allow them to do a debate. And that's usually fun. Those days are lit in the class. That's like one of the most fun lesson plans. It's a fun way to incorporate critical thinking. And that was the lesson plan I used as an example of how I use different teaching styles. I talked about auditory, kinesthetic, and visual learning. And that lesson plan incorporates all three different learning styles because you have different types of learners out there, y'all. So you have to keep switching things up and making sure that your lessons are interactive and engaging. Anyway, y'all, and then for world literature, I just gave an example of a novel. There are like several, right, reading materials I used with my students, but I used one that I felt was appropriate for the interview. I was prepared. I had a mission statement, y'all. My mission statement was no student left behind. I think I did say that in the interview. And I was talking about one of the strategies I use for struggling students, where I'll take like an exemplar student, a student that's doing really well, and I'll let them mentor the struggling student, so that student doesn't feel like they're being micromanaged by me, the teacher, an adult. If they feel like they're working with a peer, like a friend, then they'll feel more relaxed and like they can get things done. It doesn't feel like they're being micromanaged and the teacher is on top of them. And it also teaches the exemplar student leadership skills. Anyway, yeah, I was prepared. I'm just trying to tell you, I don't even do this. I don't put together outlines. I usually just sit through and wing the interview, and it usually works for me. And this morning was no bueno. I was very upset. I went to sleep upset. And I woke up upset, and then I'm hearing them doing noise campaigns on top of me. I'm like, really? That's what's really making me make the video. I was already contemplating doing it because I didn't think it was fair. But then now the noise campaigns is typically what pushes me over the edge to make the video. Anyways, y'all, thank God for this platform, I want to say, right? Because as much as I hate being on camera and being targeted and not having privacy, that's partially what I'm complaining about, what took place this morning. It's moments like these where I can advocate for myself, where I'm like, thank God for the cameras, boy. Anyways, y'all, I'll talk to you in the next one. I'll keep you updated on what actually happens because it's like a 7 to 12 business day wait before I hear about my results from the interview, right? So I will talk to you in the next one. Peace out.